It's Women on Wednesday on The Dana Barrett Show.
In 1941, an ordinary 31-year-old French woman became the leader of a vast French spy network that lasted longer than any other and supplied crucial intelligence to the Americans, to the British. She was instrumental in D-Day. Her name was Marie-Madeleine Fourcade. And though a lot of people don't know her name yet, they will. After next week, there's a new book coming out about her. It's called Madame Fourcade's Secret War. The author, Lynne Olson, is joining us on the phone right now. Lynne, how are you? I can't hear her. Is she there?
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, Lynn.
Okay.
Nice to have you on the show. We had a moment there for a second. Okay. First of all, thank you for joining us. But let's get right into this. Tell me a little bit about about who Madame Fourcade was and what inspired you to do the research to write this story.
Well, I am a historian. I've written 8 books. This is my 8th book, books of history, focusing mostly on World War II and Britain. And the last book I wrote, it was a lot to do with the European countries that were occupied by Hitler.
Okay.
And in that book, I wrote a lot about the resistance movements in these various countries, including France. And I ran across this woman whom I had never heard of. And that's surprising because I have a lot of experience in doing research about the resistance movements all over, particularly in France. And what I learned, the very little I learned, I was just so fascinated by her. As you say, she was a 31 years. She was young. She was young, beautiful, elegant, the mother of 2 young children, who in 1941 became the leader of the largest intelligence network spying on the Nazis. And her story was just so compelling. I was only able to devote a couple of paragraphs about her in the last book, and so I thought, oh my God, this woman deserves a book of her own, and that's why I set out to do it. And the story actually turned out to be even more dramatic than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I was saying to you before we got on the air, and I'll admit to the audience, I haven't had a chance to read the book yet. But I want to also mention that Lynn is coming to Atlanta on her book tour, and she'll be here in, I think it's like 2 weeks. It's on March 11th at about 8 p.m. at the Atlanta History Center, and I'll be on stage with Lynn interviewing her, and I've promised to read the book by then. But I say that only because I've only read sort of the notes so far, and even in the notes, just the little short paragraphs that I have read, there's some really shocking stuff. That she was captured and managed to escape twice? Who does that?
Right, by the Gestapo. Well, as I said, her network was very large, and it was very successful. And what it did was collect military information, intelligence about the military presence of the Germans in France. And, of course, that was very, very important to the Allies. They needed to know that for a number of reasons. One, because they were going to invade France, as they did on June 6, 1944, at D-Day. So they needed to know as much as they could about the Germans. And her network, which was made up of over 3,000 agents. It was huge. Those agents were spying on the Germans, in submarine bases and airfields and all over, and they collected all this incredible intelligence. So the Germans, the Gestapo, were out to get them. I mean, they were determined to crush them because this network was doing so much damage to their cause. And she, being the leader, they were on her trail for much of the war, certainly for 1942, 1943. She was on the run from the Gestapo. She was captured twice, as you said, escaped both times. Once the most extraordinary escape was in 1944. She was captured in the south of France, in Aix-en-Provence. It was a hot day. They put her in a cell. They didn't quite know who she was. They knew she was a spy, but they didn't know that she was Marie-Madeleine Fourcade, and she knew that they would find out the next day. So what she did is took off her clothes and put her dress between her teeth and managed to force. She was very small and petite. Managed to force her body through the bars of the jail cell, and escaped.
Wow.
And went back to Paris.
I like that.
I mean, it's like a movie. I mean, the story is unbelievable.
I love that she was like savvy enough to like bring her dress with her in her teeth.
Exactly. She thought ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, she was terrified because she knew that if they found out who she was, that they would torture her and then probably execute her. And so she just determined to escape. She was that kind of person. I mean, she was incredibly charismatic, very forceful, beautiful. She was very beautiful, but she just had this amazing ability to lead and to do these incredible things.
Yeah. I feel like we could obviously do like a full hour on this. Good thing we're going to get that chance at the Atlanta History Center, Lynne.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let me ask you, while I still have you right now, how did this all start for her? How did she get sucked into this life?
Well, she, right from the beginning, she was a very unusual woman in France. You know, France then, and to some extent today, was very conservative, very patriarchal. She refused to let men dictate how she was going to live, and she was that way as a child, and she was that way later on. When the war broke out, she was appalled that France gave in to the Germans, and she immediately joined this infant spy network that was started by a close friend and associate of hers who was a French military officer, intelligence officer. So he was the creator. She was his deputy. And that began in 1940, in September 1940, which is very, very early.
Right.
And then when he was captured by the Vichy police the next year in 1941, she took over as leader.
Wow, fascinating. And so it sounds like she was really, it wasn't like it happened to her. She was anxious to get involved right from the get-go.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
She was an agent. You know, she wasn't pulled into it. She set out to do it.
She chose it. Yeah, wow. And I mean, this takes working mother to a whole other level.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Oh, my goodness.
She didn't see her children for most of the war. She handed them over to her mother, and at one point the Germans were going to take them as hostages so that she would turn herself in.
Wow.
And she had them sent to Switzerland. But it was really, really difficult, obviously, for her. But she considered the future of her country to be more important at that point than the welfare of her kids.
How old were her kids at the time?
They were. Well, when the war began, they were 8 and 5.
Gotcha.
So they were very young.
Yeah, wow.
Very young.
What a fascinating story. I'm so glad that you happened upon that story and were able to find as much as you did to write this book. It sounds so fascinating. I can't wait to read it now, Lynne. I'm excited.
Good.
Again, we're talking with Lynne Olson. She is the author of Madame Fourcade's Secret War, the daring young woman who led France's largest spy network against Hitler. She will be in Atlanta at the Atlanta History Center March 11th at 8 p.m. We'll post a link for tickets on our show notes page at danabarrett.com. Lynne, thank you so much for being with us. We have more Women on Wednesday stories